Hey there, my name is Joshua Migadde, and I am so happy and glad that you are able to get the Flashback Retro Titles template. If you aren't able to get it, it's okay. You can stick by through and watch this tutorial because you may learn a few tips here and there that you can use in your future project. Let's just get right into it. So when you download the project file, you'll get a zipped file. I'm using a Mac right now, so I'm going to just double tap. I'm going to use archive utility like what most Mac users have, and let's open up this zip file. And it's done. Yeah, so in the folder, you'll find some other folders and files in it. If you are able to get the zip file and you're watching the tutorial right now, which means you've already opened up this folder, and then some other folders in there. We have assets, documentation, project file, and thank you. In order to get the project file that we'll be using, you just come and open up your project file and it will show up here. So there are three project files inside the project file folder. Reason being is that I'm using an After Effects version, After Effects 2022, but some of you may be using After Effects 2021 or 2020, which is okay. Depending on the After Effects version you have, I have a text file that shows you which After Effects project you need to use. Okay, so if you have After Effects 2021, you're going to use the project file flashback 18.x. If you have After Effects 2020, you're going to use flashback 17.x. Now, I'm pretty sure currently I'm using 2020, so I'm going to use this one, which doesn't have any numbers attached to it. And I already have the project file open. So when you open up the project, which I think you've done or you'll be doing soon, it has a composition. It has a composition that's already open and it's called Showcase. Showcase has all the title templates that you want to use. We can preview them right now. Let's preview them and see what happens. Right here where you see the cursor is moving, you're going to find three folders. We have other, final compositions, and assets. So assets is going to include the dates. In it, you'll find a composition, specifically having those kind of text that you may use in other compositions in the titles themselves. We are going to have export, which is going to include your export composition and footage. We'll get back to that later. You have the letterboxes. You have 5 letterboxes that you can use. And then you have the VHS textures we talked about. Okay, not yet talked about, but yeah, you have VHS textures. And then final comps contains all the 35 plus compositions that you also find here in Showcase. So reason I put them in such a way in Showcase is so that you can easily see what you want and pick on it. If I want something like rainbow, I can come double click on it and there I am. If I want something else like, let's see, glossy over there, I can come and I check out glossy right now and edit it if I want. So basically that's how the entire thing is arranged. Other includes all the images and pre-compositions plus the solids that are currently being used inside of this project. Right. So since we've talked about what you'll be able to find, how you can easily pick the composition and choose whichever one you want, we are going to edit some of these compositions. And I'm going to start with one of them. It's called Glossy. I'm going to look for it. It's right over there. And I'll pick it out. So Glossy currently has it has that kind of flash with a star. If you don't want it, you can come and click that toggle button and then you get rid of it, so it will be something like that. I'm using something called shy layers, whereby I'm actually having more layers than you actually see. You only see 2 layers right now, which is the white flash and the composition having that and the composition containing the text that you're going to be editing. But behind that, I'm having other compositions like edit these compositions, glow, that have effects on them, and then layer, so on, light sweep. So in order not to tamper with some of that, I'm using shy layers. So one way I could change the text is I could come to edit this text, this composition called edit this text, and in it I'm going to have the text composition and those two words, a or a letter A, and the word effect. I'm going to hide this in the meantime, and then I'll open text composition. Let's fit that, and I'll open again, edit this text, and I'll change this text to whichever word I want. Let's see, would say pink, and I'll change the rotation. I'll click R, or I'll come here to transform, and I'll change the rotation from -9 to 0. A shortcut I normally use to get the anchor point, which is over there, into the center is I click Command Option Home, and I'll use my align tools whereby I'll align it to the center. After I'm done with that, I'll go back to my composition before, and you see it has all changed. I've removed the words R, or the word A, or the letter A, and the word effect. I've hidden them so you can't see them. And I'm going to go back to my original composition, and we are going to play this back, and let's see how it works out. So you can easily change your words, and then do whatever you want, put whatever text you really want to put. One of them I'm going to talk about right now is this exact composition, rotation. Okay, so rotation actually is the way you see it. It's rotation, but it's in 3D format. The text is in 3D. What you do, it's not actually that hard. Again, you can come and change the words you want. Let's say right now it's rotation. We're going to say flying. I don't really have words to use. That's lying. Let's say flying. And then immediately I'm done with that, caps off, the word will be, same thing will be happening. Same thing, same effect we were having, rotation will be happening. And then again, I'm using the shy layers again, and here I'm having tons of lights, that are on, and some of them are not being used. You can turn them on whether you want or not. Another thing I'm using in this composition, especially for the words, I'm using something called an environmental layer. This environmental layer is what's giving those kinds of colors that you see over there. On that environmental layer, I'm having a gradient ramp, one color being black, the other color being purple, and if another effect called colorama. All these effects are natively in After Effects, so just come here, colorama, it's over there, and then you drag it in. I set up the colors I wanted, and I got that, but you don't really need to come all the way that far to edit that. I'm going to turn on hide my layers again. I'll just come to hue, and I can change it to any other thing I want. You may want something like that. That looks cool. Actually, that looks so cool. Basically, that's what I'm using. I'm using environmental layer, and I'm also using lights because it's 3D text. And there are a lot of 3D text that you can actually see. If I come back to my showcase composition, like here we have Mr. Gold, we have Red Flash. Red Flash is another one. Again, it has tons of effects, but for it to edit the text, you're going to find this composition called text. Just open it up, and then you're going to have to edit the text right there. If I come somewhere like here, I can change my text, and again, I'm using shy layers. Most of the layers are shy layers, and I'm having a camera, the one that's enabling me to get that kind of motion if you preview it. And then I'm having tons of lights, and I'm also using an environmental layer here. Again, as we said earlier, you can change this text however much you want. But right now, something I like about the font I used here, it's called ITC Avant Migadde Gothic Pro. I think that's how you say the word. It has a number of glyphs natively in it. So in After Effects, I don't really know how you can change glyphs natively in After Effects. So what I do is that I change this to red flash, the way it is, but without the glyph. I copy this text into Illustrator. I already do have Adobe Illustrator open, and I'm going to paste it. Yeah, and I'll just highlight the letter I want. Right now I want letter A, and it immediately shows me glyphs that are already possible with that letter. So I'm going to use this one, Flash. After that, I just copy this text back from Illustrator. I go all the way back to After Effects, and I'll paste it in that space. And immediately after pasting it, you see the glyph I copied directly from Illustrator is now reflected right here in After Effects. Yeah, let's talk about one more composition that you can use, you can edit. It's called Some Writing Characters. Actually, it's called Writing Characters, but just call it Some Writing Characters because that's the text I could see over there. And in it, again, I can edit the text as much as I want. So I can say this text, let's say it's called running. And I can align this text into the center. Again, using the same shortcut I used before to move the anchor tool into the center, Command Option Home on your keyboard, and my align tools into the center, caps lock off. Yes, and caps lock off. When I come here, you'll be seeing that the text will write itself and later on reveal the word running. One thing I would advise you, especially dealing with this, is that when you change the font over here, if you want to change the font, let me say the font I'm going to use D dot, it doesn't automatically change the fonts for these two. So I have to come individually and change the fonts for all of them, like D dot, and then same thing right here, D dot. So after doing that, all my text will obey the font I've actually given them. And let's go back. So basically, we've talked about almost basically how the compositions are, something like Jen says more. I think for those who are alive at that time, I wasn't. But for those who are alive at that time, I think you remember a TV show actually called Mary Tyler Moore. Mary Tyler Moore was one of the series, and it actually had that kind of intro where the text came in like that, something like that. You can easily change the text here, like let's say something like MacBook Pro 1. And immediately I do that, all my text there has just changed to MacBook Pro 1. So it's really easy to change text. It's really easy to customize this entire template. So don't feel worried that things seem hard or not. It's not really that hard. Just find the composition you want, the title that you really want to change. There are tons of them. Pick the one you want and then edit it, use it, and you're done. So we are going to talk about this export composition that we talked about earlier. You can import your footage, and we currently have that. Let me hide this, and I'll go back to my export composition, and you see directly on top, I'm having the layer we talked about earlier, which was rotation, the composition, the title's template rotation. We change the text to flying, and now it's right here. It's flying in the export composition. But yeah, if I want to export this entire thing, I would come and I would say pre-render. And I export it with the export composition with the background. And I would come and change the settings from custom settings. Currently it's using Apple ProRes 4444, but I would use Apple ProRes 422 HQ. And I would export it to wherever I want to put it. That's if I want to add my footage there. But if I want it as a transparent layer, an alpha channel, something that I can go and put into Premiere Pro or into DaVinci Resolve or in Avid Media Composer, I would come back to this composition itself. I would render this entire composition as an alpha channel file. How I do that is I need to make sure it's actually transparent. Clicking this toggle button, the toggle transparency grid, it's going to show me whether it's transparent or not. If it's transparent, it's going to show you the white gray checker box. If it's not, let me just create a black solid real quick and you'll see how it looks like. If it's not, it's going to look something like that. You know, whether you click the toggle transparency grid button, nothing's going to happen. So I always have to make sure for every other composition that I want to use, if I want to go and just import it as a transparent file into Premiere Pro or whichever software you want to use, make sure it's transparent by clicking on this. I want to export this as an alpha channel. I'm going to come to Composition, Pre-render. And I'll go back to my output module and I'll click on it and make sure that it's using Apple ProRes 444 or Apple ProRes 44444, sorry, XQ. Those two actually support alpha channel. How sure am I of that? I'll come to channels and I'll make sure it says RGB plus alpha. If it says RGB, it's going to render the text and the black the way it is exactly. It won't be transparent. That's why we use RGB plus alpha, you know. And then I'll hit my render queue. I'll render it out to wherever I would have saved it. Another thing I want to talk about are these assets that we actually have. We have VHS textures. So let me say I'm in my export composition, but I want to add some VHS texture. There are two of them provided, so I'm going to pick the second one. Reason why I wanted it, and I'm going to scale it up all the way to fill the screen. Maybe I want to position it a bit higher. And I'm going to use blending modes. Blending modes, I'll have to toggle my switch. Some of you may be in this kind of toggle switch view. I'll come here to my mode and I'll change the blending mode to screen over there. Immediately I put it in screen, you see I'm having that kind of VHS retro texture and it will be moving like that. My background in my footage layer is actually not that long. I could duplicate it a number of times and move it. And when I go back there, it's something like that. And we also have letterboxes, 5 of them that you can use. I'm going to pick either one of them and I'm going to put it right on top. You see what it does? Exactly what letterboxes would do. Because in that time period, they didn't really have 16:9 TVs or screens. They were mainly having 4:3 screens. The 4:3 being an aspect ratio. So if I want to add one of the DITs, which one of them is already in the folder, already in the composition, but if I go to my composition, let me just hide these two right now, and I go back to my export composition, I can add my DITs. I'll copy this one and I'll come and paste it, in my composition right there and put it under. And then I'll make this smaller and probably align it all the way down and make it a little bit smaller. So yeah, and we'll be able to have something like that, something similar to what we could find in the 80s or 90s. That's it, and thank you for watching. Thank you for passing through until the end. I'm thankful that you were able to get it, and for those who weren't able to get it or haven't purchased it yet, I hope you've learned something new. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.